There's a lot that goes into a service project beyond the actual site time. As many of these hours as possible should be credited to your members as service hours in order to set them up for successful completion. Service learning is a framework for experiential learning that ties contextual classroom instruction and leadership development time to the service projects your young people are doing in the community. This process also involves developing member initiative, skills, and thoughtful reflection into these projects to make them more engaging, leading to great member buy-in to their work and deeper development. This can improve the members' total program experience, resulting in better outcomes for the program, the member, and the community they serve. This is a framework that all staff at a program should buy into and coordinate on. Program directors, educators, and service coordinators all need to work together on this and have a plan on how things will be connected for it to be really effective. Why is this important? Through intentional planning, when we add context to both our service work and tangible relevance to the lessons being learned in the classroom, it creates continuity. When all components of your program logically flow together, it makes for a more engaging experience. Many of our programs are transitioning to more of a school model. Service opportunities can be limited in this paradigm, but training hours fill up quickly. So we need to strategize how to credit some of the members' program time into service hours by directly and logically tying them to the service experience or project. It is also a priority of not only the YouthBuild standard, but of AmeriCorps regulation as well. CNCS regulations task us to use service experiences to help participants achieve the skills and education needed for productive, active citizenship, including the provision, if appropriate, of structured opportunities for participants to reflect on their service experiences. The purpose of this presentation is simply to introduce the concept, define its steps, and give some context to them. So here is a simple overview of the 5 steps of service learning. Investigation is time spent identifying a local, national, or global community need to address while making sure to involve the students in diagnosing this area of focus. Preparation is the pre-work for a project involving preliminary research, design, and logistics, not only developing strategies for future activity, but also time establishing benchmarks for success with your students so that they can help to measure their progress. Action is the actual implementation of the service activity, but with a focus on continued instruction while doing so. Reflection, structured time throughout the project to digest what is being learned and add context to the work. Demonstration, time set aside for members to showcase what has been accomplished and share what they have learned. Investigation. Typically, when we think about this step, we are focused on the members identifying an external issue that their service can address. What are the issues in our community? Researching those issues through social analysis and identifying community resources to support. Thinking through how our program effort can support neighborhood partners in the work. These are all great ways to get started and begin to have your young people discover their own information on the context of a project. But it can also take the form of a personal inventory as well, reflecting on one's own value by thinking through what we can each add to the task at hand, creating some group space for members to think through what skills and talent we each possess and can bring to bear to the benefit of this particular undertaking. Some programs engage members as community liaisons, attending neighborhood meetings to accomplish this. Another method is to work with your education department to create research assignments that tie in the classroom to the topics being addressed on the worksite. When planning for the year, spend some time strategizing how all components of your curriculum can be integrated. How can you use service to teach academics, or vice versa? How can you use service to develop leadership skills? How can you use service to build job skills and network with employers? By answering these questions, we are not only enhancing the experience for the member, but this continuity can also benefit the program with increased outcomes. When young people identify as part of what's going on in the program, it can be a powerful feeling. Many are coming to us from experiences that they were allowed limited, if any, investment in. Your program can be the first time for many of them to feel this level of involvement, and with that will come buy-in and retention. Preparation is again all of the pre-work involved in a service project. This time, preparing and planning can be tied logically to our projects in a number of different ways. Independent research and group discussion time that is directly focused on the logistics of a project is certainly appropriate, and by the way, is a great task to assign to your youth policy council. Shop time, spent pre-fabricating the materials for a project, is also a creditable service time. One example of this is the Build-A-Bed service days many programs across the country have used as a way to assist in the assembly of beds for needy families, using pre-measured and cut materials. While all the time spent during the actual service day counts toward AmeriCorps completion, so should the many hours spent creating materials for the large volunteer group. Time in the workshop that is logically tied to the production of materials to be used on a future project is definitely appropriate as service credit. To give a non-construction service example, consider what work goes into getting ready for a secondary service project. Let's say a typical lot cleaning day. By the collecting of trash, the students are providing a valued service to the community as volunteers, but let's be real. This is the kind of task that might feel more like a chore or punishment to your young people, regardless of how important it might be. But if we frame the project through service learning and take some time to provide context and involve the members on the design of a project like this prior to going in, it can make it a more meaningful and impactful. Maybe in the pre-service phase, we allow some classroom time for students to learn about the importance of water quality, or develop an understanding of pollution issues. We could take time to involve members in creating a list of materials we will need on site to work safely and effectively, and think through how they can assist in the training of any volunteers we might engage in the work. Perhaps we can arrange for related topics such as environmental public policy to be discussed in the weeks leading up to this task. Just a few ideas that can make it matter to your young people. Action. This phase is fairly self-explanatory. Eventually, the day arrives when the project needs to be done. Not much to add here, except making sure an effort is made to note areas that would be interesting to focus on during a reflection or debrief after the fact. Also, making time during the project to call back to previous classroom instruction to tie it in. Reflection. This is the phase that we as a network have focused a lot on in the past few years through the civic reflection model. One reason we zero in on reflection so much is that this is where things can really start to click in place for the members. American philosopher and education reformist John Dewey once said, "We do not learn from experience, we learn from reflection on experience." Setting aside time to reflect using site debriefs, so what did we learn, how could we do better next time, or even pre-briefs, such as with civic reflection, where we use objects such as articles, photos, video, or literature as a focal point to get young people talking about the issues in the community. Make space to add context to the service they are doing in the community and really absorb the things they have learned and applied in practice. Reflection is typically mentioned toward the end of the process when discussing frameworks such as these, but it can happen anytime, before or after, or even during. And finally, demonstration. This step is sometimes referred to as celebration, but using that term can give a project or learning experience a false sense of closure. Rarely do we solve the world's problems with one project, and we want our young people to continue to expand on what they've learned and build on it. Another way to approach this component is by having the young people demonstrate what they have learned. Tasking them with presenting on what they have learned allows students to thoughtfully structure what they have gotten out of the experience. By teaching others, they take a role in their own learning experience. For review, here again are the 5 steps of service learning. Again, this short video is just meant as an introduction to the framework. As we move into the future, YouthBuild USA will provide more training and guidance about how to use this model to identify more creditable service hours for your members to be set up for success. A few things to consider before moving on to those training and resources is to identify those structures that you already have in place that can be built upon. When we have time to get together with others in the network, it's always helpful to share these best practices with our sister programs. After all, we are all in this together. Thank you for your time today. We will talk to you soon.